Hello, fellow citizens of the dystopia. I'm Tim, back with another Robot Butt Recommends. And today's Recommends is a bit of a celebration. Today is the 10th anniversary of the theatrical release of one of my favorite movies, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. So, why not recommend that? Celebrate its 10th anniversary. I touched a little bit about it when I talked about Brian O'Malley's Seconds. This is the movie that Edgar Wright made based off of that graphic novel series, and I absolutely love it. It is about Scott Pilgrim, who is a young man in Canada, kind of a douche, actually, but that's kind of part of the story. And he starts seeing a new girl, someone he has a crush on, and in doing so, ends up having to face off against her seven evil exes, her seven ex-boyfriends. And what I love about the movie is, as someone who is very into gaming, and I've talked a little bit about games on this, the movie takes that sensibility and runs with it, because the books touch on it as well. There's a lot of video game references and the way the story plays out, but the movie just finds a fantastic way to visualize all of that. And a lot of that goes to Edgar Wright, who I talked about last week with The World's End. He has a very fun, kinetic energy in terms of his visuals and his filmmaking, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World probably remains the best in that regard. The fight sequences are very well staged and very fun. It's not it's an action movie that really does focus on that. Well, it's not really an action movie, but the action sequences really do focus in on the fun aspect of this. And it really is probably one of the better showcases, I think, for the use of CG in movies. Not in the sense that the CGI itself is super impressive or technically advanced, but the way it's integrated into the movie, so that there's a very video game comic book feel to it, but it feels organic to the world, I think is incredible an achievement, and is something that other movies I don't think pull off nearly as well, especially when we're talking about live action. I think Into the Spider-Verse kind of is in a similar vein, but that's an animated movie, so it's not quite the same. Scott Pilgrim, I think, remains the best live action incorporation of distinct CGI visuals into a real world setting. But yeah, so it's very fun. There's a lot of energy to it. The story, I know a lot of people who have read the books that the graphic novels they're based on don't like the movie version as well, which I think is fair. The graphic novels are, told over a series of books, whereas this is being condensed into one movie. So, especially when you get to characterization and the actual writing, I can understand that, especially with the character resolution between Scott and Ramona at the end of the movie. It's kind of a little disappointing, or a little kind of falls a little flat, but I think the rest of the movie more than makes up for that. As I said last week, Edgar Wright is an incredibly funny filmmaker, and the way he utilizes quick cuts and camera swipes and just, weird zoom ins on random things. And again, the use of, because of the way this world operates, where there is kind of a video game vibe to it, the way he's able to have fun with a lot of the visual components in the movie make it incredibly enjoyable. On top of all of that, the movie has just a kick-ass soundtrack. It is fantastic. A lot of it was written by Beck, but it has this great, indie garage band energy to it. I use the soundtrack when I go running a lot. It just melds perfectly with the world of the movie. And I really, it's 10 years old. and it holds up very, very well, because there are other movies that, rely a lot on CG that, from 10 years ago that even now still look dated. 10 years ago isn't that long, but they're still kind of, you can see, oh yeah, that's not great. I can see the seams and everything, but all the visuals and the staging and the cinematography and everything in Scott Pilgrim remains top notch. And while I wouldn't say it's Edgar Wright's best movie overall, it definitely is. It definitely represents the best of his staging and set pieces. So that is my pick. I'm going to throw that in tonight to celebrate the 10th anniversary. So give it a shot this weekend if you have never seen it. I think it's going to be a pretty wild ride for you. If you have, 10th anniversary is a great time to dust off the DVD, or pull it up on iTunes or YouTube or any other digital rental service thing. But that is it. We hope you have a great weekend, and we will talk to you. Oh shit, there is something I forgot to mention on Tuesday, and that is that this week we do have a new episode of our Franchise Strikes Back podcast. So an additional recommendation to throw on at the end here. This week's episode, we are talking about the 28 series, 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. So, great choice if you are still, dealing with the global pandemic and fear of it. But Scott Pilgrim and a new episode of Franchise Strikes Back. There's your weekend, folks. But we hope you have a good one, and we will talk to you next week.